All right. This is my Evo that is for sale now. It ended up getting replaced with a Corvette. I'll turn my other light on. But I bought this car a few years back. It was all stock. The story I was told, an old man had owned it, I believe, and he died. The wife had put in her name, I think. There's no proof of this, by the way. But the wife put in her name and then later on sold it to their neighbors who sold it to a wholesaler. And then he sent it to the auction in New Jersey. And I bought it online. I bought this originally to flip. It was all stock. It had 13,000 miles on it. And I'm a car dealer, so I was gonna, end up selling this thing. But I decided I was an idiot for trying to do that because you don't come across them with very low miles. And the fact this is yellow with the leather interior, you really, really don't come across this combination. And it's got the factory subwoofer, the sunroof, all the goodies. But, exterior wise, we'll go through the mods a little bit. Exterior wise, it's pretty much factory. I didn't add a lip. It's still a stock front bumper. I put wheels on it. They are 18 by 9.5. So they're not very skinny. They're pretty wide wheels. And they're wrapped in some Toyo R888s. Those are very expensive tires. They're about $1,200 for a set. But when I had this car, when I did everything to it, I'm not one that really cheaps out on shit. I'm going to put the better quality part regardless of how much it is. That's just how I am. I like quality over cheap shit. So, I understand when you sell a car, you're not going to get that money back. And that's just how it works in this world. But you want to have something that's fun and you can enjoy. So that's what I did for myself. But yeah, for the exterior, all you're really going to see is these T37s that I bought brand new. These wheels alone were about $3,800 before your tires, so there's some money in wheels. If you curb your wheels all the time, probably don't want these on your car. Rear bumper, I only added this carbon fiber piece where the plate goes. Nothing crazy. I'll show you the defects on the exterior. We'll start off with the rear wing. It's carbon fiber, but over time, the clear starts to lift up a little bit. So it's starting to do that, but it's still shiny. Doesn't look super bad. And major ones, this guy up here, my bumper, paint had been chipped off, and then a rock hit right here. So this part, the fender liner actually ripped off. The car sits so low, it's almost impossible to keep your fender liner. But eventually it did come off, and it ripped the tab out of this, and it pulled the paint off that little bumper on the end of it. This happened from a rock hitting it. I was very pissed off about that. So it is what it is. At one time, this bumper was repainted. Back in 2006, the car was in an accident in a parking lot. A vehicle basically backed into the front, and that resulted as the bumper had been repaired, and then this fender right here has been replaced. Everything else on this car, it's got all of its VINs. It's not salvage. It's not, structural frame damage. It doesn't have any of that. But that is probably the worst thing about the car. And then if you ever see the Carfax on my website, you'll see why that fender and then the bumper itself was replaced. This car is from 04. Something bound is gonna happen, okay? Eventually you're gonna get a little bit of an accident. That's just how it goes. But the car overall, it's straight. Underneath, there's no frame, there's no kink rails, nothing like that. It can't have been that strong of a hit, being in a parking lot when it was parked. But you'll see on Carfax that accident was reported more than once, and it's obvious because the descriptions are exactly the same. I made an effort to get that fixed, although I don't have any documentation I don't know the guy that owned the car at the time. I don't know. I don't have any paperwork from the state. So I already made an attempt to fix it. It's going to take a lot of work to do so. But just ignore it at this point. Another defect. There's a little... This was a touch-up pin, but this got scratched right here. That's about, I want to say 2 inches long. And then you got a little bit going up to this. It's about 4 inches long of a scratch. But it's, you know, that's about it, really. The car is straight. There's no dents on this body. And the paint looks great. We will go off with the interior. We'll leave the engine for the last. But the interior, I didn't do a ton of mods, but the few I have done, they weren't cheap, believe it or not. But like I said, I spend my good money on this car. You got your leather seats, got a little bit of wear on that, typical, especially on these Recaros. You get in and out, you're sliding all over that. But they hug you nice. The steering wheel was something I always wanted to do. I had a shop called Caballo's Customs. I don't really remember the name very well. But that guy cost me $700. I brought him this wheel. He stripped it down to bare metal. All of this that you see, he created these moldings. These are not the factory moldings. He didn't just go over that. Sorry about that. My phone got interrupted. Anyways, the wheel was done by a high-end interior shop called Caballo Customs down in Tempe. And it was hand-stitched. Everything done, high quality stuff. Very expensive. I probably overpaid for that. I'll be honest with you. $700. Other things I've done with the interior, we got the Rally Art carbon fiber shift knob. This is something you could buy from Mitsubishi back when this car was new in Japan. I don't know about it in the US. You probably could, but the Rally Art stuff's really neat. I always thought it was cool to collect it. But even got the little Rally Art stubby carbon fiber radio antenna. And then we have our gauges. We have 3 gauges down here. You got boost, AFR, and your oil pressure. I've been a little lazy. I have not set up the boost, or actually, I have not set up the oil pressure. The boost gauge, it works whenever you're in boost, and it doesn't read very well, so this thing probably should get replaced. The AFR gauge works great. This thing just needs a 1/8 MPT fitting for the oil filter housing, and then you can plug it in. It's already wired up and everything. But yeah, I'll cycle these on so you can see what they look like. Yeah, there you go. Stock radio. Didn't really ever want to change that out. And then in here, I got some wheel locks, and then I have for the coilovers. Excuse the trash that's in here. But we got the EDFC controller, and you can adjust the dampening from inside the car instead of having to get out with tools and spin some stuff. So that's really neat. Then in the trunk, we got the subwoofer. I left the box. The old cam gears are in here. The old cams are in there. This is a charge speed rear mirror cover. That thing was like $200. It popped off, but you can put it back on. It goes on pretty good. And then you got wrenches for your coilovers. Then in the engine bay, this is where the fun begins. Basically for the motor is stock piston rod, stock bottom end. You just have the OEM head gasket with ARP standard head studs. And then you got Kelford 272 cams. They run great. We're not over revving it. We're keeping it at 7,000. You know, if you want to rev out a little bit more, I'd recommend doing a little bit more valve work on the head. That way it's set up properly for it. But I didn't need all that when I'm running, you know, a 30R. So, but yeah, for the motor, it's basically stock bottom end. It just has upgraded cams, cam gears. It's got the HKS cam gears that you can see. And then we have the Kevlar HKS timing belt. It's got brand new water pump, everything that you have to do when it comes to replace your timing belt, replace all that stuff, it was not cheap. But, you know, you want to do it right. I think my camera's shaky. Bear with me because I don't know how to fix that. It's on my phone. Anyways, turbo kit. This is a JDL stock location manifold. It's set up for a T3 housing, which is what we got on there. T3 housing. And then the downpipe, it's got the wastegate recirculating back into it. And there's a tile, I believe a 44 mil MVR. So great little wastegate. Never had any problems with it. This turbo kit, you can't just buy it. You gotta actually hit up the fabricator and see if he's willing to make it for you. But these guys are really good when it comes to fabricating turbo kits, hot parts, all that good stuff. So definitely built with quality. I had it coated in the bronze Cerakote, so it's heat resistance. Wow, the camera's shaking. That's pretty annoying. All this is heat coated all the way back down to the downpipe. So from your turbo manifold to the hot side of the actual turbo, yeah, we had that done. Your dump tube, your downpipe until it meets the test pipe, and you know that air gets pretty hot. So it's pretty nice that I had all that done. A lot of the parts on this car are STM, so you're going to see the STM intercooler piping kit. Even on the lower, on the sides, all of those are the same color. They're the mag blue, and that's all painted. But yeah, parts on this car are painted that you don't even see. We got our STM battery tray. I'm probably going to miss some little things. Just bear with me on it. But I got the STM battery tray with the Odyssey mini battery. This thing rocks for the size that it is. Never really had any problem starting it. It's never been dead on me, and I've let it sit for 3 weeks at a time. So it's very impressive for what that does. The radiator that we're running, this is the Evo 456 radiator. I ran this specifically for the upper routing of the tube. You're not close like on other radiators. The neck will come out right here. And it'll be very close to your manifold, and that will get hot. So I figured, well, why not just run the older gen? Easy, you run the factory lower hose, and then you put an Evo 456 upper hose on it. And that way you don't have clearance issues. So that was another thing I wanted to do. We got STM reservoirs. So we got our coolant reservoir and our power steering. And I think that's it. Yeah, that's all I put on there. And then we got our radiator stays. Down there, there's a transmission mounted catch can. You're really not making a ton of power. You're not going to have a bunch of blow-by and all that oil sitting up, but there's a big old catch can down there. So it's doing its job, I guess. And then I polished this myself, a little thermostat housing. That was only took a couple. Well, sorry for the other interruption. My phone overheated. This is Arizona for you. All right. Anything else I could tell you about this fuel line setup and vacuum lines? They're on push lock fittings. These guys are not coming off. They're good for 300 PSI. So there is a very strong chance you're not going to get a boost leak or vacuum line leak off one of these. Really, the only way you're going to get one is probably off your intercooler piping or your turbo inlet pipe for the compressor housing. But yeah, I also got the STM fuel line kit, so it converts the feed to -6 and then the returns to -4. But we got our fuel pressure regulator back here. And you can see my lines that I ran all the way under. We got the STM fuel rail and ID 1300X's injectors. And the fuel pump's a Walbro 450. Makes 530 on E54 at 30 pounds of boost. And on 91, it made about 430 at 21 pounds, which is wastegate. So yeah, if you're on the 91 map, it's set up for wastegate only, so you're not going to be, crazy fast. But hey, over 400 on pump gas, that's not terrible. We'll take it. But yeah, anything else I could think? We got the ETS 3.5-inch intercooler. Actually 3-inch intercooler, but it flows just fine. And the exhaust on this car is the STM titanium 3-inch. The catback alone was like $1,700. And this car sounds just amazing in person. You won't find many Evos that sound as good as this one. And I spent a lot of money on that exhaust because I wanted it to sound as good as it can get. It's got a resonated test pipe to help muffle it down, but before it had a full straight pipe. So it was like straight pipe from the turbo all the way up to the muffler. It was really raspy and it was loud as shit. So I went ahead and threw that resonator on there and it quieted it down a little bit, but it still sounds like a beast and it rips. It just sounds amazing. But yeah, I'm sure I might be forgetting a few things, but now you kind of have an idea of the car. Please give this car a good home. I spent a lot of money and time on this. And most of the mods I did myself. Two things I didn't do. I did not upgrade the clutch myself. It's got an upgraded clutch. It's a comp stage 3. Awesome, awesome clutch. You can daily drive with this clutch if you really wanted to. That was upgraded at Street Car Factory. And then the cams were installed at Street Car Factory with the head studs and the head gasket and the timing belt. I don't do all that stuff. Everything else that you see on the car pretty much was done here at my shop, and I have a little lift back here. But yeah, you got drilled and slotted rotors all the way around. You can see the back seat. Really, no one sat in the back. Back in the day, they still put in ashtrays in the back seat. That's pretty cool. You get the Japanese businessmen driving us around. They're smoking the cigarettes. Luckily, I did not smoke in this car. I wouldn't be that idiot. I would do that. I want to preserve it. But yep, thanks for watching my little walk around video. Sorry, it's not the best, but it is what it is, you know. One last view of the car.